Hey, Fed heads. Welcome to another episode of Sharing Our Pairings. Sorry, the intro played a little long there, and it was the wrong intro. That's my bad. I'll fix that in post, so it'll be fixed on the YouTubes and in the podcast. Welcome to another episode of Sharing Our Pairings. I'm here with a very special co-host, John the Cigar Surgeon. John, how you doing today?
Trippy, I'm good. How are you doing, brother?
Pretty good.
It's been we've been chatting a lot over the last couple of weeks. It's been a hot minute for me. For those who aren't aware, I'm the general manager for the largest true tobacconist in Canada. We're about to open our 18th location. That's right, 18 cigar stores, and it's a lot. We just literally last week we finished our 17th store, and then right at the end of the week we turned around. I drove back to Calgary, did a cigar event that night, and then turned around the next morning and we had the biggest indoor cigar show in Canada, the Rocky Mountain Smokeout, which was all weekend. And that was Nick Melillo, Alan Rubin, Joe Bondi and Justin Bondi from Alec Bradley Canada, Steve Ricker from Dominion Cigar. And that was, for all night Friday, all day, all night Saturday. So yeah, I could use a trip to Cuba. That's what I could use.
Yeah, I hear that. Sounds like it's been a busy couple weeks for you. I've been busy, but not like running around busy, just busy doing stuff at home.
It's kind of that time of the season though, where as you kind of move into fall-ish, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. We start to get into Halloween time, and it just seems like, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of things to do.
Yeah, exactly. But we're not here to talk about what's been going on. I forgot to mention we're broadcast live on Facebook, rebroadcast on YouTube and as a podcast, and of course broadcast around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment, drop us some emojis. We love that. We like some interaction with you guys. We like to know who's watching. But of course, we are here to do some other stuff too, like smoke cigars and pair things with them. The cigar we are smoking, I kind of thought John was going to mention it there, but
I was tempted, but I didn't want to bury the lead.
This is John's last. I'm trying to get like a decent shot of mine. There you go. Look at John's. I'll switch over to his camera so you can see it. And of course, as soon as I switch over, it unfocuses. The cigar we're smoking today is the Atabey Misticos. This is a very special cigar. We got these from the IPCPR. Nelson and Oliver from Select Tobaccos were really gracious enough to just kind of gift these to us. They weren't like press samples or anything. They were just like, here, we want you guys to have this and try it.
And in all fairness, we didn't really have a true sense of what we were getting until we kind of went back to the hotel room and then looked it up and went, oh my God, I can't believe they gave us these cigars.
Yeah, so this is the Atabey has announced a couple new sizes that are coming out at the end of this year, around December. They're scheduled, and this is one of the new sizes. But the special thing about this one is it comes in all of their boxes are kind of humidors that have like little hygrometers in the front, and they're just really thick, nice boxes that you could use as a humidor.
Best packaging in the industry, arguably.
Yeah. But they're 5x4, so they're stacked up like this, and they're kind of those, sort of tall, thin boxes. This one comes in a completely different package. It's a wide 2 rows of 10 kind of humidor. It's like piano gloss white, and there are only 100 of these humidors made, and we were lucky enough to get 2 of the cigars. They don't disclose what the blend is here. We know they're made in Costa Rica.
We know that they have crushed unicorn horn in the tobaccos, without question.
And we know that this appears to be a Connecticut shade wrapper, though we have no idea what country it comes from. That's about all we really know about it. And these come with a pretty hefty price tag if you're not familiar with Atabey. They run all of the Atabey series is somewhere between $30 and $40. I think the highest ones are around 37, 38. This one, I think the MSRP is 34.
Now we were talking in the green room before the show, and I was saying, that's a few bucks, especially in freedom dollars. That's a few dollars. I wish that people could smoke this cigar first and pay for it afterwards, because I'm like, well, I wasn't even an inch in. I was a half an inch in, and I was like, God damn, this is like, there's so much going on in this cigar. And we were talking about our good friend Barry Stein over at the Cigar Authority, who gave this cigar 100 points. And I think if you've smoked this cigar, and like I've only smoked an inch of this, I think you can really quickly feel why this is a 100-point cigar. This is amazing. Like, this is truly an amazing cigar.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible how much flavor is in the cigar and how many layers of flavor. There's so many layers. And I know that when we interviewed Nelson, he was talking. I should have watched the interview to kind of refresh my memory. But I know he was saying that they use 4 different types of cedar to age these cigars, and I think they're aged for a year before they even box them on 4 different types of cedar, including Cuban cedar, because the Nelsons who do all the blending and own the factory, or sorry, they don't own the factory, they do all the blending and own the company and the brands. It's a father and son team. Both are named Nelson. They're both from Cuba. They're both Cuban natives. I know that the younger Nelson that we were talking to at IPCPR, he actually still lives in Cuba. I'm not sure about his father. Jose Hernandez wanted to know what cigar we're smoking. This is the Atabey, and this particular Vitola is the Misticos, which is I should have pulled up the specs.
6 by 56, and 6.25 by 56, I think.
Okay, thank you. So
it's definitely
6.25 by 56. And I mean, it's just a fantastic cigar.
I mean, we were talking for about 3 or 4 minutes straight, trying to decode, because there is so many layers to this cigar. There's chocolate. It started out with this incredible, intense spice, which almost immediately dropped off. And there was this flavor that I just couldn't put my finger on, and we were going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And then Skype crashed. And we're confident it's peppermint, and not like peppermint you get out of a vial, like peppermint like you pull
or
a
fresh
candy
or something like that.
Yeah, like it's fresh peppermint leaves, because it's got this really subtle, nuanced, fresh, clean flavor with a little bit of that chlorophyll to it, and it's just incredible. Like, I can't even.
Yeah, and it's got so I mean, to talk about the flavor notes a little bit, there's a little tiny bit of like black, maybe white pepper, I would call it.
Yeah.
It's like a little bit of heat, but not like a pronounced pepper flavor. And then it's got there's a little bit of cream, there's a little bit of almonds. I'm trying to remember what my notes were before that I said, and I don't remember. There's a little bit of caramel.
That cedar comes through, I think, on the finish.
Yeah, there's really a lot of cedar.
Kind of carries all those flavors into the finish. I mean, it's just, I can see why Logan wouldn't like this, because it's not, it's not, intense isn't the right word. It's not big and bold and in your face, which is kind of where Logan tends to land with cigars. He wants to be slapped around and beat up. And this is the opposite end. This is like a Connecticut shade cigar, but the flavor profile is dialed to max intensity, and I'm just kind of floored by the flavor profile of this.
It definitely looks like a Connecticut shade cigar, but it does not taste like one. It's about as far as you can get from it.
And the wrapper, of course, like the cigar, is flawless. The band is beautiful. It's got this wonderful silver Atabey symbol on it. The wrapper is absolutely, every single vein on this cigar is pressed perfectly.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of what you would really expect out of an ultra premium cigar, but we talked quite a while ago.
Look at that burn.
Yeah, I know, it's stupid good. We were talking about what would unseat a Padron, and I think this is that kind of cigar. This is the kind of cigar where I say, yeah, this is as good or better than a Padron 1926 80th anniversary series, and it's ironic because it's not in the same flavor category as a Padron
at all. It's completely different. But I mean, I could see myself if I was looking for a special occasion cigar, if I got promoted or a new job or something, and I saw this in a Padron, I might have a hard choice. I can't say yet which one I would buy. I might buy this one.
I think I might buy another one of this, because I've smoked a lot of Padrons and I like Padrons, but this this is wild. I mean, I'm almost speechless. Like, this is amazing.
We're raving about the cigar, but we're not just here to talk about the cigar.
We're
here to pair.
Pair,
dog. Actually, before we get into the pairing, I know there were a couple questions about why this was your farewell show. And as we kind of announced last week, or sorry, it wasn't last week. It was actually a week before last because you were too busy for us last week.
Too busy.
Which is kind of the reason that this is coming about.
That's right.
Surgeon just has too much going on with his day job to help me manage a cigar site at the same time. So he'll still be around, but he's no longer going to be my regular co-host, and he's not going to be as hands-on with Cigar Federation.
Yeah, and the other part of it is Trippy and I got into a huge fist fight in Las Vegas, and
it was
really
rough.
decided that we couldn't work. That's not it at all. Yeah, it's absolutely the case. I've just got way too much on my plate, and SigFed has grown into this monster of a media site, and I love it. And the last 4 years and a bit, I've loved to watch it grow to what it is today with its amazing members. But I can't devote the amount of time that the site really needs, and out of respect for the site, my workload just can't take it anymore. And fortunately, we've got you on board, and we've got some new mods trying out, and we've got some new guest hosts and co-hosts, and I think the site's in good hands.
Yeah. I mean, for anybody wondering, Cigar Federation's not going anywhere. Sharing our pairings and Cigar Chat aren't going anywhere. We're just going to have some different co-hosts that I kind of rotate through. You saw last week I was with Matt pairing some beers, and a couple weeks before that I was with Jason. So they're going to be a couple of my regular co-hosts going forward.
Kudos to you for getting Matt on the show.
Yeah, he wanted to do it. He wanted to talk about some beer. All right, and now speaking of beer, this isn't beer, but that's as close of a segue as I'm going to get. So my first pairing is from Surgeon, and it's in one of these little bottles, so I don't have a fancy bottle to show off. But this is Ron Santiago de Cuba. When I was looking it up, it looks like there's a couple of age statement versions, an 11 and a 12, and there's a no age statement that's no longer in production. Do you know which one this is, John?
I believe that's the no age statement.
Okay. So I've got the no age statement Ron Santiago de Cuba. I mean, it looks and smells like Cuban rum. I'm excited to get into it. I don't have much details other than that. What's your first pairing, John?
Well, without going into any great detail on the beer itself, because I know we're about up to it on the first break, but this is a new brewery to me and a new brewery to Calgary. It's called Common Crown Brewing Company. This was brought to me by way of a great fan of the show, Ruben, who participates often. Ruben was nice enough to drop off a sixer at my office of a various Common Crowns, and I've been slowly working my way through them. And this, so far, really good. This is the Blonde Ale. A little bit about Common Crown, founded in 2016 by twin brothers Andrew and Damon Moreau, along with Bob Robertshaw. They're located in Calgary, Alberta, and they, like I said, just opened last year, 2016. So brand new to the city, and let me just hold that up, and it definitely looks like a blonde ale. There's no question. Very blonde, very effervescent, and I was kind of looking for something on the lighter scale to match up with this Atabey, because I didn't want to really run this cigar over, and so far so good.
All right, and with that, we're going to take our first station break here. We'll be right back, guys.
Gurkha Cigars, makers of the world's finest cigars. Try the 93 rated Heritage, featuring a Rosado Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, Nicaraguan binder, and Dominican, Pennsylvanian, and Nicaraguan fillers. Blended by Gurkha's blending team at American Caribbean Cigars, it's hand-rolled Nicaraguan, available in 35-count boxes. Talk to your local B&M about the Heritage today, or talk to them about other fine Gurkha cigars. Whatever your taste preferences, Gurkha has a cigar that's right for you.
And we're back. So I'm drinking the Santiago here from Cuba. This is an interesting Cuban rum because it's not... I think it was a couple weeks ago I had another Cuban rum on the show, and I was talking about how there's always that distinct bitterness to Cuban rum. And this has much less of that than I'm used to with other Cuban rums.
Yeah, I think what it is sorry to cut you off there. I think what it is that there's a whole selection of product that doesn't really get a lot of love outside of Cuba because either most people can't get it, like I don't typically see these products on the shelf, or they just aren't exported. And so I think there's this whole world of rum in Cuba that I'm, slowly bringing back in my suitcase that has phenomenal flavor to it. And really the way I approach Scotch and the way I approach really anything is I'm always looking for something new that's different. I don't want three Cuban rums that taste exactly the same or different variations of each other. I want three Cuban rums that taste radically different from each other, and each of them has a unique place on my shelf. And so that was one of the pickups where I was like, this is pretty good. And the price was really good also.
Yeah, I like it. It's definitely a little different than the Cuban rums that I'm used to drinking. But it reminds me a little bit of like Canadian rye. It's got like that really clean palate at first, and then the finish is a little bit of that, kind of dirty bitterness that you get from Cuban rums. But it's kind of got a little bit of like that spice and vanilla that you get from like a Canadian rye, which is really interesting. How's your first pairing going?
It's nice. I was commenting before the show because I was sneaking some sips. Sometimes in a blonde ale, I get a lot of metallic, and I don't know if it's just my palate, but I tend to pick up a lot of metallic character on some ales. And what's really nice is this doesn't have that. The effervescence is nice. It's got a little bit of citrus note to it, so it kind of cleans my palate. It has a really, really clean finish, which is also nice, and a great mouthfeel. Not really the weather for a blonde ale, but it's not freezing outside, so my beer is not turning into a slushy, and she good. A little bit about the beer, because I didn't really talk about the specs. I went on their website, and it's 4.5% ABV, 22 IB. Oh, see, that's weird. So it's 22 IBUs on the beer on the website, but it's 21.2 on the can. I mean, this is 21.2 on the can. That is literally undrinkable.
I can't believe you even took another sip after that.
Literally undrinkable.
You get your palate all geared up for 22 IBUs, and then you get hit with that 21.2, and I could see that just like throwing your whole day out.
I mean, my whole night is now. No, I'm just kidding. So they say that their blonde ale is a light-bodied beer with the golden color of the finest two-row Alberta barley that finishes with notes of citrus. That's true. I do get that citrus, and it is kind of a mixture of lemon and orange, I would say, without that harsh bitterness. Of course, using Alberta barley makes sense because Alberta grows a crap ton of barley. Really, all of Western Canada grows a crap ton of barley, so it makes perfect sense that they'd use it in the beer. This is pretty good. I think the citrus matches up nicely with the cigar. I think a couple episodes ago, I kind of made a misstep with some of my pairings, and I think I need to do more ale pairings with cigars that are in this strength category, because you can get a lot of flavor profile out of an ale without that sort of punch in the mouth of taking your palate over. And the citrus character here really superfires the cigar. Some of that spicy component of the cigar is a little bit more highlighted, where it's maybe without that citrus component, it's getting hidden underneath the creaminess. But again, this cigar has so many layers to it that you really got to put. I mean, this is not something you want to smoke and play video games and ignore.
Yeah, this is a cigar you really got to pay attention to. And I don't know if I'm getting into the second third here and getting some transitions, or if it's the rum, but it's suddenly like really fruity.
Interesting.
And I can't figure out what fruit it reminds me of. I think it's like peach or apricot kind of fruitiness. But I definitely wasn't getting that before.
I'm still getting loads of powdered cocoa. Again, I think what's really interesting is that each of the flavor components here are kind of balanced out. It's kind of what I would describe a really well-prepared dinner dish. So all the flavor components, nothing's really standing out. The spice isn't strong. The cream isn't strong. The cocoa isn't strong. That lovely spearmint isn't strong. They're all just kind of there and in balance. And like I said, I think because there is so many layers to this, this is just not a cigar. It's not a yard gar, especially at $32 MSRP. It's not something you kind of want to just throw away. I think you hit the nail on the head. This is probably a good celebration cigar if you want to really, really celebrate an occasion. This is probably the one to go for.
Yeah, if you've got the time to commit to it and pay attention, I can't see many people not enjoying this cigar. It's just got so much complexity. And when you were talking about the the balance of the flavors, I was thinking kind of the same thing about how it's hard to pick flavors out because there's nothing that's peaking up above the others. Yeah. They're all kind of right in line with each other.
Oh, I wanted to mention one of the things I picked up on the weekend at the Rocky Mountain Smokeout, the biggest indoor cigar show in Canada. Number 4. Next year is going to be number 5. It's going to be off the hook. But I saw this, and I'm a sucker for cigar stuff, and I'm a sucker for Calibre stuff. And the red so it's a triple torch. Nice slide action on it. It's got the 3 jets, but they're pointed, which is always nice. You get that triple point.
I always like when they angled them.
Exactly. It's got the cool fuel window, which they've started doing. It's got the foil in the window so you can see your butane levels. But then what makes this really, really cool is you're like, John, I've lit my cigar. How do I cut it? Well, let me tell you how you cut it. With that cool built-in V-cutter. That's right. It's got a built-in V-cutter. I'm very excited being a part of the V-Cut Nation. So now, I kid you not, I've got one thing that I can take to a herf. I don't need to take 6 things with me. I mean, I probably still will, but it's everything I want, and I'm super stoked. And you could probably knock somebody out with this. It's got to be about 3/4 pound, maybe, of metal.
Yeah, Calibri's definitely got a history of making some hefty cigar accessories. Mm-hmm. They make stuff that feels like you could shoot it, and it'll survive.
For real,
their stuff is built real solid.
God, this cigar is so good.
Is it? Now I have to ask this though: is it the deep V? Are you getting
no? And I'm
on that?
No, I'm actually I'm kind of glad it's a medium V. So you can see that it's got a medium V cut, and I think this is probably the style of their new cutter. So it's not serrated, but it is a medium V, and I kind of like that because I've got the shallow V from Lotus, I've got the deep V. That deep V cool switchblade action from Calibre, and I've got the sort of regular V from Zycar. So this kind of fits that perfect. I probably wouldn't use this on a torpedo because I think it might be a little deep, but for probably 90% of my cigars, this is going to be my go-to tool now.
Nice. I might have to make a little investment in one of those.
Right.
So I'm going to introduce my second pairing.
Do it up
here. I've had this on the show before. This is Zafra rum. It is Panamanian rum distilled from 100% molasses and aged for 21 years in bourbon casks.
Damn!
So it's got just a touch of age, and you can see it's a little bit darker. Oh. It's kind of got more of a bourbon color than most rums do.
Actually, got maybe a darker bourbon color than a lot of bourbons do.
Yeah, it really does. It reminds me of something like Booker's, I guess, that's kind of extra dark. It's almost it's the color of a red ale. Yeah. Have you ever seen a red ale? That's kind of what color it is. And it clocks in at 40% ABV. I didn't check on the Santiago just because I didn't have the specs for it.
I assume it's either 38 or 40, yeah.
That's what I would guess. So what are you drinking for your second pairing?
Now, what's really strange for my second pairing, given all the Japanese whiskey I've featured over the years, and given the amount of Japanese whiskey I enjoy, I have never featured this in the show. I think Robbie has featured this in the show, but I've never featured this in the show. If I'm a liar, please point out the episode. I appreciate it. You can drop it in the comments. This is the Hakushu, and I'm pretty sure I picked this up when I was down in San Francisco, and Robbie couldn't make time to see me. That's right, throwing you under the bus, Robbie. And I saw this at the local bottle shop at the Bevmo, I think it was there, and I walked in, and they had this on the shelf, and the price was stupid good. It was $41 or $42 freedom. And I was like, yeah, I need to definitely up my Japanese whiskey. And at the time, because this is 2.5 years ago, so at the time it was a little tough to get some Japanese whiskeys up here. So this is, of course, under the Suntory Group banner, one of the main stables of their entire Suntory Group. This one's located in Torabara, which is a locality in Chubu, Japan. This distillery was established in 1973 on the forest slopes of Mount Kaikoma, there we go. Kaikoma, Mount Kaikoma. little bit of a tongue twister for me. Then they expanded the facility in 1981, presumably because it's good. And this is the 12-year. Clocks in at 43%. We've talked a lot about Japanese whiskeys tend to clock in around 43%. That's kind of their staple, which I appreciate. It's kind of got that golden straw color, kind of pretty typical for a lot of Japanese whiskeys. And the nose is really what sets this one apart for me. This is, every time I nose this, I get Macintosh apple.
Yeah,
which is
a lot of, I get that from a lot of Japanese whiskeys, which is just nice.
I think that's probably a factor of the Japanese oak. I think that's what's imparting that flavor, I think. But this tends to be, like, obviously with that citrus component, it's also really subtle and really nuanced. And that's kind of what I was hoping for this cigar. I didn't really want to go huge. I didn't really want to go in your face. So to me, Japanese whiskey kind of fits that bill between strength and complexity and elegance. And I think it's probably going to be a great pairing with this Atabey, but only time will tell. And that time is me taking a sip.
So for the Zafra, I'm not sure what it is. I get a little bit of funk off of it.
Interesting.
It's just a little, I can't describe what the flavor is. And it's also a lot smokier than I remember. I think it might be the cigar that I'm pairing it with. Because this cigar, even though it's got a ton of flavor, it's fairly mild. Like I would put it at just under medium strength. And I feel like the smokiness is kind of taken over the palate from the bourbon barrels that the rum is aged in. And I just think that kind of takes a little bit away from the complexity of the cigar. It makes me a little scared for my last pairing.
Well, my third pairing, I went a little crazy, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. This was the right call. Japanese whiskey and this cigar, I think, is going to be a match made in heaven, and I think I'm going to revisit some of the Atabeys with Japanese whiskey. It's funny because this cigar amplifies the whiskey, and the whiskey is what I would call nuanced and subtle, and it's huge next to the cigar. The cigar just super fires the whiskey. It tastes like scotch. It's got so much body to it. And the citrus that I'm getting off there is supercharging the cocoa and the cedar. So I'm not really getting that spearmint off the cigar anymore. It's really getting run over by the whiskey. But what I am getting is just boatloads of cedar and boatloads of cocoa and creaminess. So for me, that's kind of a win. It's not, it's not great that I'm running over some of the nuances of the cigar, but some of those subtler flavors in the cigar are being supercharged, and the cigar is supercharging the whiskey. So to me, that seems like a win.
Yeah, that seems like a good pairing. I'm going to have to do a little Atabey and Japanese whiskey pairings in the future myself.
Oh, so good. It's got actually, I'm getting a really nice smoky quality. No, I'm smoking a cigar, but like a peat fired almost smoke, but like really, really subtle off the retrohale now. And it's got such a clean finish too. Like I don't taste tobacco on my tongue at all.
Yeah, there's a little bit of spice on the finish and a little bit of sweetness. But it doesn't taste like a cigar finish. Usually you get kind of like that, that
tongue coat.
Yeah, that tongue coat of the cigar flavor, tobacco, burning tobacco kind of flavors. And you can't really the finish doesn't say cigar.
No. Which
is very strange. And we're going to take our second station break here. We'll be right back after this message from one of our sponsors.
Cigar Oasis. Don't spend all your time worrying about your cigar wrappers cracking, splitting, or falling apart from humidity fluctuation issues. Set it and forget it by choosing Cigar Oasis, a professional solution which provides equal distribution of humidity with precise electronic controls. Monitor your cigars through the internet using the Smart Humidor Wi-Fi attachment. Why don't you spend all your time enjoying your cigars and relaxing, and let Cigar Oasis protect your cigars? Cigar Oasis has solutions for any humidor. Make sure you set it and forget it today.
And we are back. John, you have a little Cigar Oasis thing to talk about.
I do. So I was moving some cabinets around, and I'm using embarrassingly, an older electronic humidification device in that unit. And I reached out to our good friends at Cigar Oasis, and I said, listen, is there, do you guys have any units available? And they were kind enough to send me a Magna, which is perfect for my cabinet. And Trippy had to hear me at IPCPR. I was freaking out because this cabinet
losing it.
I was losing it because all of my cabinets and stuff are kind of set up so that I don't have to worry about it, and I don't want someone else to have to worry about it either, because I don't want someone else to take on that responsibility. This cabinet happens to be a lot of my older Cuban stuff, and I obviously with Cuban stuff, once I've got it aged in there for like 6-10 years, I don't want to screw around with it. And my fiance, who was kind enough to call me, she says, there's a whole bunch of alarms going off on your humidor, and like the humidity's up, and like all these things were happening. And I came back and I tried to dial in the humidifier, and it was reading 55, but it was still pushing out air at 71. And I was like, this is like, I can't have this happen. Sure enough, I plug in the Magna, and like within an hour, once it's settled, perfect. 67.5, perfect. On the nose, double checked with my hygrometer. I've got a caliber 4 in there. It's perfect. I've got a remote sensor in there. Perfect. And this has been holding solid for like 4 days now. And I think the other thing that I really realized is how loud the other unit was. I can't even hear the Magna go. Like if you walk over, you can hear a gentle whir when it goes off, and that's it. But for me, it's really about the set it and forget it. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but I don't want to be screwing around with this thing, and I don't want someone else to have to worry about this. The fact that I can just put it at 67.5, I can walk away. In a month or 2 months, when it runs low on water, it's going to notify me. I'm very, very happy. I feel like, I don't have to think about my cigars as much as I probably
do you have like the Wi-Fi module in yours so it notifies you?
I don't, but given the amount that I've been away, I'm kind of contemplating getting the module and having it email me. Because, if I'm away, again, I don't necessarily know what the issue is, and it's tough for someone who, doesn't babysit these things to know what the issue is when alarms are going off and sensors and heat and all that. So I think that's probably something I might end up picking up.
So with my Magna, it's so easy, which is nice. And the only maintenance I have to do is if I hear that fan going off more than normal, I'm like, oh, it needs water. And I put a little water in, and it's good for another, I don't know how long it usually lasts. Probably a month and a half, maybe 2 months.
Sounds about right.
But I dig it. I like it a lot.
By the way, love the beads. Absolutely the way to go.
Yeah.
Forget seriously. That whole floral foam business. Like floral foam is a recipe for mold in your humidor, mold in your humidifier. Beads are the way to go. They're relatively inexpensive. Throw them out after a year if they get saturated with ammonia or whatever. Swap with a new set of beads. Fill it up with water. You're good to go.
Well, and with the Magna, I've never had. I've had it for almost 3 years, and I've never had any like ammonia issues or anything with the beads because they're sealed in there.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. I do find that with, I think maybe it's just my Cuban stock, as it ages, it tends to put off a little bit of ammonia. So I find that I do go through beads, especially with new stock. You can see them kind of yellowing. Yeah. I've set it and forget it, man. Like, no joke. It's so nice to just not have to worry about it. It's perfect all the time. Happy day. Smoke my cigars, not think about my cigars. And thanks very much to Cigar Oasis for making that happen.
And I'm about ready to move into my final pairing. You might be able to stick with pairing number 2 for now if you want, but pairing number 2 was just a miss for me.
I can totally move on. Do we have any questions or comments or feedback from our audience?
This
is my farewell show, so
we have a couple of questions or a couple of comments about how much people are going to miss you. People don't want you to go away. But again, John's not going to be gone forever.
I'll be a guest. I'll be a guest on the show.
Yeah, exactly. You could be a guest. Maybe when I don't have anybody to host sharing our pairings with me, you'll come around for an episode. You're just not going to be my weekly co-host anymore.
Exactly.
You're not gone forever. You may even see some reviews from him. We'll see. So my final pairing is, if I can get it to focus there, it's got a really cool graphic. This is from Fremont Brewing.
Looks like a Sasquatch.
It is an abominable snowman. So this is, they call it B-Bomb because it is their, I'm trying to remember exactly what they call it. Their abominable winter ale.
Nice.
Aged in, all right, let me pull up the description in my notes here because there's a lot going on. So first, this is from Fremont Brewing in Seattle, Washington. They were founded in 2009 by Matt Lincoln. He was an attorney who actually specialized in the beverage and hospitality industries, and decided instead of helping other people get their breweries and restaurants and stuff up and running, he might start his own brewery.
Who even likes making lawyer money?
Yeah, exactly. And so apparently without telling his wife, he decided on his own that he was ready to start his brewery and went for it.
By the way, Matt, that is not a wise decision. Just speaking as a man who's about to be working on a second marriage, that's not a wise decision, my friend. Yeah,
that seems like a bad idea, but it seems to have worked out for him for the last 8 years. So first I'll start with the beer. So it is the mash bill is pale chocolate roast, carafa, Munich, and dark crystal malts with Columbus, Willamette, and Golding hops. One of their things is kind of local. They try to use as many local ingredients as they can, and there's a lot of malts and hops grown here in the Pacific Northwest. And so they make that abominable winter ale. And my chair is sinking here. This is very strange. The hydraulic must be going out.
Your head just keeps getting smaller and smaller in the image.
So this beer is aged for 12 and 24 months. So it's a mixture.
Wow.
They don't really say how much of each, but there's some 12-month aged and some 24-month aged beer in here. And those are aged in 12 or 16-year-old American oak whiskey barrels, which is bourbon. So this is an old beer, and this is also the 2016 release. So this came out about a year ago.
Wow.
I think the new one will launch in, I think, November next month. And I mean, it's an ale, but it looks pretty stouty.
Looks pretty stouty to me. That's pretty thick.
They don't disclose the IBUs, but it clocks in at 14% ABV. So it's what we would describe as a Hita.
That's a Hita for sure. I'm featuring another beer from a distillery or a brewery that has not gotten a lot of love. I don't know why. This is Unibroue out of Quebec, out of Chambly, Quebec. I've talked about them on a previous show. They're purchased by Sleeman in 2004, and then Sleeman was purchased by Sapporo in 2006. They were one of the first original 3 microbrewing companies in Greater Montreal. They make great beer. Like, all their beer is like stupid good. This is the Raftman. I'm kind of going in a different direction with this. I just want to kind of push the envelope a little bit on what we're doing here tonight. This is a Belgian-style smoked ale. Now, I saw the smoked ale, and I was like, oh, man, smoked ales can be really hit or miss. It can be, like, super smoky, which is not really what I want with this cigar. But I think it's having a couple sips so far. It's subtle enough that it's not overrunning the cigar, and it provides a very different flavor characteristic than what I was expecting. You look at the color, and it's almost like a cross between an amber ale and a brown ale. So it's kind of got the cloudiness of a brown ale, but the overall opaqueness of an amber ale. 5.5% ABV. They have serving temperatures. Their website's actually really well done. You can serve it at 6 to 10 degrees Celsius science, or 43 to 50 degrees freedom, which is about right. So basically slightly chilled, but not very cold. It is a top fermented, peat smoked Belgian style whiskey malt ale. Clocks in at 10 SRMs and only 15.5 IBUs. It's creamy, and the smoke is not at all like you'd get out of a Belgian or a regular German smoked ale, like Oktoberfest style smoked ale, which really got a heavy smoke to it. This is very nuanced. I'm almost reaching to find the smoke in it, which is probably for the best given the strength profile of this cigar. Yeah, and so for my pairing, a really interesting thing is I completely expected this pairing to not work at all, because this is a mild to medium bodied cigar and a very, very strong beer. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. They're actually going together really well. So there's a ton of bourbon character in here. Like, you smell it, and it's got that kind of classic vanilla sourness that you get in a bourbon aged beer.
but it really brings out a lot of good characteristics in the cigar. The sweetness of the cigar is really muted, so you're not getting as much sweetness, but the kind of more vegetal, like that chlorophyll you were talking about, is there. The white pepper is really coming back, and I really get a ton of that super unique peppermint flavor that you were talking about.
Nice.
I mean, I've never tasted that in a cigar, and now it's really intense and delicious.
I mean, I suppose that makes sense in the sweetness category because it doesn't have any milk sugars in there, and at 14%, there's got to be no sugar left in that. It's all been converted to alcohol. So, I mean, crap, you're almost approaching wine category at that level, really.
Yeah, I mean, 14% is where wines are.
Mm-hmm. So it makes sense. It's probably, yeah, that's actually probably for the best because I think, I can imagine like if I had the, now I can't remember the name of that stout, that the big 1050. Thank you. See, you're in my head. If you had a 1050, I could see that being just way, way too sweet. Even though it's not a really sweet stout, I think that would be way too sweet for the cigar, and a lot of those nuances would be run over. But I think if you took that sweetness away, and you still had big stout character with espresso and all those bourbon characters, yeah, that could be a winning combination. Sounds like it, anyways.
Yeah, I think surprisingly it just goes together really well. I mean, there's a little smokiness in the beer. There's a little bit of bitterness, but not too much. Like, if I had to guess, I'd say it was like in the high 30s IBUs, like 35, maybe 40. And I'm just also noticing that it brings out a ton of creaminess in the cigar. Mm-hmm. This is a good pairing, really surprisingly. I just kind of went for this beer because, so there was one of my Facebook friends was saying the other day how he posted a picture of a beer and said, "I'm hoping this beer lives up to the insane price tag." And then it turned out it was $4. And I was like, dude,
it's like, dog,
that's nothing. And he was like, well, I don't usually pay $16 for like a 12 pack or for a 4-pack. And I was like,
dog,
okay. I mean, that's not crazy pricing to me.
10 or $12 for a single bomber, dog.
Yeah. And I have no problem with that. This little bottle put a hurting on my wallet a little bit.
I bet. That sounds like an $18 bottle.
25.
Yeah. It's aged, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's crazy aged.
And it's high gravity. It's not a cheap beer for them to make. So no. I don't think they're price gouging or anything. But I was looking for a special occasion to open this bottle, and your last show seemed like a pretty good occasion.
Thanks, Trippy. And I think that's probably the kind of thing you want to be pouring with this cigar. I mean, this is not a cigar. Like, no offense to some of the less expensive beers and spirits and wines and stuff out there, but this is not the cigar you pour the 10-year-old port with. This is a cigar you pour like a 20-year-old late bottle vintage port with, or in your case, a $25 high-end super quality craft beer, because that's kind of what you want to be pairing here. You don't want to be pairing hooch with a cigar like this. I'm sure maybe hooch might go well if that's your thing, but this is kind of a cigar that really demands something a little bit finer and
a little more complex. I mean, that's I think why this is working so well is because the cigar and the beer are contrasting, but they're each very complex in their own right.
So I'm finding with my Belgian style smoked lager, or smoked ale, I should say, that the smoke is actually supercharging the creaminess here, which I wasn't expecting. Like I said, I really wasn't sure how that smoke quality was going to sit with this cigar. But what's happening is that creaminess is super firing for me as well. That sort of vegetal spearmint is coming back. And the chocolate and the cedar that I was so prevalently getting with the Hakushu is gone. So it's kind of a reverse pairing of the Hakushu. The two elements that were being highlighted there are now being muted. And the two elements that I was really enjoying with the first pairing have come back. And the beer overall is not really overly complex, which I guess makes sense for a 5.5% ABV. And like I said, the smoke is quite light. But in terms of pairing, this is kind of what I'm going for. It's highlighting the cigar almost entirely. I don't think the cigar is really doing anything for this beer at all.
Really? That's kind of sad to hear.
That's okay. I mean, the beer, Unibrow makes some pretty reasonably priced stuff. I got this in a taster pack. The beer has a nice subtle sweetness to it. It's got a great creamy mouthfeel. But none of the flavors of the beer are really standing out. I think just because the intensity of the cigar may be running that over a little bit. But again, when you get an MSRP of $32, I really don't want anything in this cigar being run over. If the spirit of the beer is lost a little bit, but highlights the cigar, I'm still okay with that. That's a good outcome, I think, for me.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, $32 is a high asking price for any cigar. And I mean, the pairing, you should pair something that matches up well if you're spending that much on a stick.
Yeah. This is an outstanding cigar.
It really
this is absolutely a 100-point cigar. There's no question in my mind that anyone with a palate who isn't a yak who smokes a cigar would happily pay the asking price for this. I don't know if you can get your dirty hands in a box, but I mean this is a phenomenal cigar. Great way to do a send-off show for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Which brings us to our last station break, which of course we have an outdated ad for, so we're not going to play the ad. But it is brought to us by the fine folks over at Drew Estate. Smoke them, they good.
They good.
Download the Drew Diplomat app, check in your cigars, win some awesome stuff. I mean, they have some really cool stuff. And we actually just got a comment from one of our winners from a few weeks ago, Cole Cruz. He got his FSG swag in the mail today.
Nice.
He loves it.
Yeah, man, that was a great show with Jeff Borshowitz. I haven't caught up to the show with Fabian yet because I'm still catching up on my podcasts and stuff. But Drew Estate crew is really cool, and the stuff they're doing over there at Subculture Studios is outstandingly amazing. If you've ever been down on the Drew tour, If you haven't been on the Drew tour, you've probably seen the pictures of people with their humidors and their shirts, and what in some cases the door from their stand-up humidor, like just crazy stuff.
They're doing a motorcycle right now.
That's nuts. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's Drew. That's what they do. And, you can win a lot of that stuff off the Drew Diplomat app. All you have to do is check in your cigars. So if you're not a Drew Diplomat app member and you smoke Drew Estate cigars, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Win some stuff, man.
And you can get a free cigar. They just announced last week that if you go to a Drew Estate event in the last quarter of this year and you show them that you are on the Drew Diplomat app, you get a free Pappy Van Winkle Lonsdale. And that is a good blend. That is a very good cigar.
Yeah, it is. We smoked one or two of those at the IPCPR, and they good.
I mean, we've got a review coming up. I smoked 2 of them yesterday. And I mean, that blend is on point, man.
Speaking of reviews, I need to get on. I've got like 4 reviews in the hopper. I've got a Cabarqueño Protocol Lost Probable Cause Lancero review that's in the hopper that I know Juan Cancel is eager to check it out. I mean, it was a terrible cigar, awful. I think it's going to be like 52 points or something like that.
I mean, I can't think of any Protocol cigar that we've ever liked at Cigar Federation.
I mean, they just don't know how to make it. No, I'm just kidding. Their cigars are brilliant, and that was an amazing cigar. So I'm really looking forward to posting that review. Got to post up that new hotness, the new Davidoff. Really enjoyed that, and I think you and I are going to do a group review of that. So I got to get that posted, and I might have some other stuff in the hopper that will get out in my sort of waning close-up weeks here as we get that out.
Yeah. So going back over the pairings, I think my first pairing, the Cuban rum, I think that's a good choice for the cigar. This cigar, I feel like, I mean, I don't have any inside information, but there have been rumors consistently that there's Cuban tobacco inside of these, which, I mean, I don't know. I guess I could see it based on the flavor, but it's hard to say whether one leaf out of these 6 are Cuban.
I don't think so.
But either way, this cigar is blended kind of to the Cuban palate, just with a little bit more strength, a little bit more body, and in my opinion, a little bit more flavor than most Cubans.
Absolutely.
But it's still got that Cuban-esque kind of flavor profile that I think goes really well with a Cuban rum.
Mm-hmm.
I would rate this one about a 90. It's a
That's
very
pretty good
good pairing. I think there are other Cuban rums that would be a little bit better. The selection to Maestros.
That's a good rum.
Or the, what's the other one you sent me?
The Ron Kubai 10-year?
Yes, the Ron Kubai 10-year. I think that one would go fantastic with this blend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think any kind of complex rum is probably a good way to go. You want to avoid some of the sweeter rums because I think the sweetness might be a little too intense. Going back to my first pairing, which was the Common Crown Brewing Company Blonde Ale, and it's good. Like I said, I think if you're going with a beer, if you got something with a little bit of citrus, like a little of that citrus quality to it, that's a great pairing because I think it really highlights and supercharges the tobacco here. The nice thing is the cigar is not running over the ale. It's good. I would probably put this at an 88, 89. This is a really good pairing. It's not necessarily blowing my skirt up, but this is absolutely something I'd return to in the future because it works and it works very well.
And before I move on to my second one, you had a bonus pairing tonight, didn't you?
I did. I was gonna. I figured we were probably gonna go into the After Dark because there's no way we're not smoking this cigar to the nub.
I mean, I can't not nub this cigar.
Yeah. So I've got the sneaky.
Yeah, we can get to your bonus pairing in the After Dark. So my second pairing, the Zafra. Hold up the bottle here for our video viewers.
Which is an outrageously good rum, by the way.
It is so good. And from what I've heard, this is kind of blended for the bourbon palate. It's kind of it's specifically made as a rum that you can pour for your friends that hate rum. And they'll think that it's probably bourbon, but they won't be sure. And then you'll tell them it's rum. And they'll be like, oh, I like rum now. And then they'll kind of branch out a little bit. It's good. It's a fantastic rum. I think it's just a little too smoky for this cigar. I feel like the smokiness is really what takes over and prevents the cigar from totally shining through. So I would give this pairing an 84. Not saying anything bad. I mean, I can't say anything bad about the rum or the cigar, but together they just don't work.
And I could see that kind of being the case with a lot of bourbons because I think a lot of bourbon whiskey tends to be a lot more intense in flavor. Mm-hmm. Like that's, put it in cigar terms, it's a medium full. And this, I don't think bourbons in general will be the right pairing for this. That spiciness, the corn, really all the characteristics that make bourbon so excellent. I don't think they'd be a good matchup for the Atabey. So I could kind of see where if that's blended for the bourbon palate, that kind of makes sense to me that wouldn't match up with this cigar pairing.
Yeah. That's just kind of the way that this one fell, unfortunately. And
great rum, though.
Peter Janatatos is wondering what the cigar is. The cigar is Atabey.
Atabey.
This particular Vitola is the Misticos, which is their new limited edition that's coming out this year. And man, my camera will not focus.
Yeah, there's a reason why I went to the C922.
It loves my face. I mean, the cigar has a high price tag, but I wouldn't not recommend this cigar to anybody.
It's worth every ducat. It's one of those cigars where you're like, oh my God, that's a lot of dollars. And you smoke it and you're like, yeah, that's why, because it's one of the best cigars I've ever smoked in my life.
Yeah, exactly. And as I've talked about before, I don't even know what the name of the Vitola is, but when we were doing the interview, I prefer to smoke the person's cigar who I'm interviewing. I don't want to be up there, smoking this guy's cigar when I'm interviewing that guy. So he gave us a Robusto-ish size. It was like a 5x54 or so. And I don't remember the interview because I was focused on the cigar.
You zoned right out.
I zoned completely out. And I mean, I was there for the interview and I was asking questions and stuff. But all I was thinking about was the cigar and how amazing it was. So
good. So my second pairing of the night was the Hakushu 12 Japanese whiskey. I'm a big fan of Japanese whiskey, and I'm a big fan of Japanese whiskey paired with subtle nuanced cigars because you can get a lot of really complex flavors. It's not overly intense. This was absolutely a great pairing. I think Atabey is probably a cigar that goes naturally with a lot of Japanese whiskeys.
Mm-hmm.
The Japanese profile for whiskey is a lot of nuance and a lot of complexity without being overly intense, and that's exactly what this cigar is. For me, this was probably the best pairing of the night, 93, 94. We'll see what happens with my secret After Dark pairing tonight, but this was really good. The citrusy component of the Hakushu, like I said, really highlighted the cedar and cocoa quality out of the cigar. It did mute the spearmint quality, that chlorophyll spearmint and some of that cedar that was in there, but yeah, great pairing. Loved it.
And my last pairing, the Fremont B-Bomb Abominable Winter Ale, aged in bourbon barrels, which I forgot to point out, they're located in, if it'll focus, Seattle Earth. They're not in Seattle, Washington, Seattle Earth.
Right.
And their tagline that was just in focus there is, because beer matters. And beer does matter. If you're going to make a beer, you might as well make it good. I thought this was going to be a bad pairing. I thought they weren't going to go together. It's a super full-bodied beer, but somehow the only thing that it really mutes at all is the sweetness, and it brings out everything but the sweetness in the cigar. It brings up the creaminess. It kind of supercharges that like chlorophyll spearmint flavor, and brings out a little bit more of that like peppery spice. And I mean, this was just a really good pairing, like 95.
Damn. For my last pairing, my last pre-After Dark pairing, Unibrow, great brewery, love their beers. It was the Raftman, which is the smoked lager. And I keep saying smoked lager, but what I mean is smoked ale, because I'm just so used to smoked lagers. I love this beer, and I love this cigar, but together, it's all right. The beer does a great job of highlighting the cigar, but they don't really work too well in concert. I think it's probably a bit of a miss. It's really what I would call an average pairing, maybe 85, 86. It's not bad. It's just average. And I think when you're smoking a cigar of this caliber, you don't want to be going with an average pairing.
Yeah. When you're smoking a cigar like this, an average pairing just won't do. It needs to be like a 90-plus pairing.
Absolutely.
Or it's just not worth pairing with it at all. Yeah. I mean, I could smoke this cigar with water and just enjoy the hell out of it.
Water's good. Rum is better.
And that brings us to the end of our Armed Forces Radio segment. Thank you, everybody out there listening. We appreciate what you're doing out there to protect our freedoms. It really means a lot to us. Stay safe. Have a great week. And try to get a cigar in if you can. And we're back with our After Dark segment.
After Dark, bitches!
Because we have to finish this cigar. I mean, sometimes...
Yeah, we're finishing this cigar.
Sometimes we finish the show and you end up with like a third of a cigar left, and it's like, well, the show's over and I got to go inside and eat dinner.
Indians.
Nope. This one, I need to finish this cigar.
So it's Canadian Thanksgiving coming up this weekend because we're crazy and we like to balance our turkey consumption. So really, it's about turkey in October. And then, we can celebrate American Thanksgiving in November. So we have a second turkey if you do that kind of thing. And then you get your Christmas turkey and your Christmas ham. So it's just turkey. And then within there, you can have your turkey sandwiches, your turkey barley soup. But I've put forth the suggestion because my fiance asked me last year, what do you think would be good? Because we go over for family dinner. And I said, one of the things that doesn't get a lot of love, it seems, at Thanksgiving is prime rib.
Oh,
it's all about the turkey, right? And turkey's a lot of work. Especially when you only have a handful of people. And I say, what isn't a lot of work is throwing a prime rib in the oven, getting that nice and medium rare, getting some of them garlic mashed potatoes. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but that was my vote for Canadian Thanksgiving coming up this weekend.
That sounds delightful.
Mm-hmm.
I want some prime rib now.
Yeah, you do. So I'm gonna tear it up in my last pairing of that, my secret pairing, my After Dark pairing. We haven't really done After Dark pairings, but you know me, I like to throw caution to the wind And throwing caution to the wind means going to an absurdly expensive, albeit maybe overpriced whiskey, Taketsuru 21 from Japan. So good. Yeah. It's a pure malt 21. And I've told the story before, but I'll tell the story again because we got a lot of cigar to go. And I had this at a whiskey tasting at Kensington Wine Market, which is one of my favorite places to have whiskey from. By the way, sponsors of the Rocky Mountain Smokeout. So if you go to the Rocky Mountain Smokeout, you can get some absurdly good spirits. They had like a friggin' port there from 1968.
Wow.
I did not have any because I was too busy working, but I was told it was really good. They also had a 40-year-old whiskey there, which I also did not try because I was too busy working. So it goes. But,
sounds like a rough weekend.
A lot of work. But this Taketsuru I had at one of the Japanese whiskey tastings at Kensington Wine Market. I had it, and I'm like, God, the bottle price is a few bucks, but I got to have this. This is back when I was making that oil and gas money. So I was like, I'll pick this up, no problem. Bought it, went home, had a couple drams for the next couple weeks, and I was like, I got to have a second bottle of this because when this bottle is gone, and you can see this bottle, sadly, or for better or for worse, I would say most of this bottle is gone from me sharing it. This is not me drinking it. This is probably So, all the people that got to enjoy this bottle, I think Robbie was one of the people that got to enjoy this bottle as well. I think I gave a little pour to Fred Rui at Nomad. And it's good. I mean, it's really, really good. Then I think about 2 or 3 months passed. So I have 2 bottles of this. I was pretty happy with myself. And I went to another tasting. And I had the Taketsuru Pure Malt no age statement. And first of all, it's like 85% is good. You know how we were talking about the price point for cigars and like the Padron 1964 versus the 1926?
Yeah.
You can almost get 2.5 Padron 1964s. Well, imagine if a Padron 1964 were $5. And you're like, well, I feel a little bad about spending $18 now on a Padron. And that's what ended up happening is it's 85% as good as the 21-year-old. And I was like, well, that makes me sad because I've got 2 bottles of 21 and it's excellent, but I could have gotten like 8 bottles of the no age statement. So needless to say, I picked up the no age statement, but all this talking, not enough whiskey drinking. This is 43% ABV. It earned the world's best blended malt in 2010. Now, for those of you wondering what a blended malt is, most malts at distilleries are blended malts, blended from the single grain malts that are at that distillery. And this is no different. This, of course, is from Nika Whiskey Company. I'm not going to tell a story again. I'm just going to drink the whiskey because it's been sitting there for like an hour and it's ready. It's ready.
It's just asking for it. And we've got some comments. Jason Stavka says RMS was awesome. The best show ever.
Best show ever.
Jeremy Miller, I can't tell if he's messing with you or not. No BS, like I've said before, I learned so much from you guys and I've watched every Sharing Our Pairings. Good luck, and I'm going to miss you, Rob.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Frickin' Rob. No, so first of all, if you're going to go back and watch the sort of startup, I probably recommend tuning in around episode 5 or episode 6. I find the first 5 episodes unwatchable and super cringeworthy.
I think it was basically pairing dummies at that point. Mm-hmm. You knew your whiskey, but Rob was a bit of a pairing dummy.
Well, and we had some technical issues, and Rob had like 180 episodes of Cigar Chat under his belt. Mm-hmm. I had like 2, so I had not a lot of comfort level in front of the camera. My mic positioning was terrible. It was just all kinds of badness. And then, I think over the years, it really polished the hell out of the show. The show is over 3 years running now. The only show on the Intertubes dedicated to pairing. And I noticed there's a lot more shows now that are featuring pairings, that are doing pairings. You see a lot more pairings featured in magazines. You see a lot of Cigar Aficionado write-ups doing pairings. And these magazines were not doing that 3 years ago. That was really an uncharted territory. So I don't want to say we invented the category, but we certainly got in at a time where no one else was doing that. And it's nice to see that because, quite frankly, I think most cigar aficionados and cigar enthusiasts out there pair something with their cigar. Not a lot of people, unless they're doing sampling, They're going to pair something. They're going to pair a pop. They're going to pair soda if you're on the East Coast. They're going to pair a beer if you're Matt, because Matt just can't get enough beers. The guy has more unique check-ins on Untapped than I think is healthy. Matt, let's talk. Let's figure out whether you need an intervention or whatever.
Well, actually, I learned last week while we were doing sharing our pairings. I got a little peek behind the Matt curtain. I had assumed he was drinking all of these beers.
Right.
And while we were doing sharing our pairings, he would have like a 16-ounce can, and he would be drinking part of it. And then as soon as we hit the commercial break, he would go, "Hey, you want this beer?" and give it away to somebody, because he was doing it from the shop.
Okay,
So
that's healthy.
I feel like that's probably a lot of what he does, is he drinks half a beer and gives the rest away so that he can drink 4 beers in a night instead of 2.
That's probably smart.
He's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah. So beers, whiskeys, it's all good. We've had some really fun pairings in the show. We've done, I think, one of the most fun experiences was doing the series with Drew Estate, where they had the specific cigars that were meant to be paired with IPAs, meant to be paired with whatever. And I think what was magical for us is we went into a territory in the pairing that was unusual, because we went with an IPA pairing. And up until that point, I think we had a real struggle finding cigars that would pair with IPA, because, I mean, first of all, the citrusy hop quality in an IPA just blows. I mean, you talk about stouts blowing a cigar away. When you have an IPA,
can really
it just
blow your palate out.
It's crazy. So it turns out that fire-cured tobacco, or like something with a little bit of pipe tobacco in it, pairs brilliantly with IPAs. So, if you're looking for something to pair an IPA with, Kentucky fire-cured. And it's great to see all these, these bourbon barrel-aged cigars. I mean, we did that bourbon barrel-aged cigar from, wow, my mind just completely
The Camacho?
No. Yeah, the Camacho.
Stout-aged?
Stout-aged.
Yeah. And I think, actually, there might have been a show for the Camacho American barrel-aged.
American barrel-aged. And it was phenomenal. I mean, I love to see, Hoy de Nicaragua with the Cuatro Cinco. One of the biggest kept secrets in the industry was that they're using bourbon barrel-aged tobacco in there, and it was kind of really hush-hush. We kind of got a peek behind the scenes, which saw a room at Hoya that I'd never seen in my previous 5 trips.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool. But it makes sense, because, with bourbon barrel-aged tobacco, you get this really rich flavor without overpowering the tobacco. And I think that's a tough dial to turn.
Yeah, and I have noticed, looking back, I've noticed there have been barrel-aged cigars that were never really marketed as having barrel-aged tobacco in them.
Absolutely.
Before. There was a Partagas, I think it was the original Partagas Black, the Inspirato Black. I think
which is a great cigar.
It might have been the original Partagas Classico. But one of those two had a wrapper that was actually aged in barrels. But they didn't really publicize it. If you read their website, it said, this is aged in a barrel. But it wasn't like, now it's front and center. If you're barrel aging something, you're telling everybody. And I feel like there might have been a stigma against it that I just didn't know about.
I mean, maybe they're worried about it coming out of the guise of flavoring or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling that I got, is that they were afraid that people would think that it was flavored. But now Camacho has kind of ended that stigma somehow.
Yeah. Which is good, because frankly, I don't give a crap. I just want to smoke a cigar that's good. This Atabey Misticos is outrageously tasty. And there, I don't think if you watch the interview, and you should definitely go back and check the interview out with Selected Tobaccos, Atabey Byron, we do a little bit of some sweeps of some of the product, and honestly, I would comfortably say that they've got the best packaging in the entire non-Cuban industry. It's just gorgeous. Stupid. It's stupidly brilliant and luxurious and amazing. And frankly, I don't deserve it.
And you say the non-Cuban industry. So with the Cuban industry, Nelson, who owns Atabey, designs all of the packaging, all of the jars, all of those little humidification tubes. He's been working with the Cuban industry for decades, designing their packaging, and this is his kind of first foray into non-Cuban tobacco. Building something that's his instead of Habanos. Yeah.
Because if you've had an opportunity to go down for a Pairings festival or Habanos festival in Cuba, they really showcase these custom humidors. They show custom packaging, and it's funny to think of Cuba as a communist island, that they've got some just amazing artisanal produced humidors and stuff that they've got actively marketed on the market, and the non-Cuban market, which is enormous. You see it occasionally, like Tatuaje did a little bit of that. Warp did a custom jar. You see occasionally companies doing this kind of really nice jar packaging or tubo packaging, but it's very inconsistent. I think where Byron and Atabey have really hit their mark is that, it really is that it's not luxurious, it's ultra luxurious level of packaging and product. And yeah, it's not an expensive price point, but there's a reason for that, because it is stupidly luxurious, and I think there's a market for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean those humitubes are gorgeous.
Oh, it's stupid.
I've got a couple of the there's like 2 series of them. The ones that have kind of like I'm not sure if it's glass or some kind of plastic, but they're kind of clear. I've got a couple of the all aluminum ones, and the construction on those is incredible.
And I mean, they're reusable. They're and they're reusable. You were saying, I think, on the show that, and you might have said it to Nelson, that you have ended up using that tube to transport cigars because it's like, first of all, it's amazing packaging, and second of all, it's a little humidor. Yeah, it's a single cigar humidor, which is perfect for I keep them in my humidor open so that the little humidification device is constantly at whatever I keep my humidor at, 66% or whatever. And I just pop a cigar in there and it's good for a couple days. And they say that it'll stay good for like 90 days or something. I've just never left a cigar in there that long on my desk to test. Because you're not an animal. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I could talk about this cigar all night, but how are we doing for questions, comments, feedback? Hopefully Facebook. Because I know oftentimes the only drawback to Facebook, we really like the platform for streaming. It's got a lot of benefits over YouTube, but the comments are weird because sometimes we've got 18 comments, but we can only see 5 of them. Yeah, sometimes they don't really show up. So Stephen Christopher says he loves this show and he's going to miss you. Thanks, brother. Jose Hernandez also says he's going to miss you. Everybody's going to miss you. That's most of our comments now, is people who are going to miss you. I wanted to throw up my Nicaraguan flag as kind of a send-off, but I felt like it was a little bit disrespectful to Atabey. Since they're made in Costa Rica. Since they're made in Costa Rica. I don't have a Costa Rican flag, partially because, there's not a lot of cigars that come out of Costa Rica. There's really only a handful. That's my excuse. I'm going to talk about the Rocky Mountain Smokeout because we got some time and I got some cigar. So this really started actually more than 4 years ago. Because as people might be aware or might not be aware, we have draconian smoking laws here in Canada. Even though we own, we are a franchise of 17, now 18 stores, we can't smoke. We can't smoke in the stores. That looked good. Getting that focus. You can't smoke indoors. And you can see it's getting a little chilly out. It's not crazy. It's like, mid 50s right now, which whatever. It's not minus 10 freedom. So that's all right. But when it gets cold, I don't want to be sitting outside in minus 10, minus 15 freedom. That's really uncomfortable to smoke a cigar. And frankly, it's bad for the cigar. But we don't have lounges. That's just not a reality of our smoking environment here. And there's a lot of states in the U.S. that are kind of going that way, like Washington. Yeah. You see smoking bans in Texas. They're just, the smoking bans are increasing all the time. So really it launched as, first of all, we just wanted an environment that people could come and smoke at. And we found that there was a lot of people that wanted to come and enjoy an environment like that. So it kind of continued to build and build and build. And last year, we had Hamlet Paredes from Rocky Patel out, which was an amazing event. He did rolling, which was really cool. People could win tickets, and the VIP passes got tickets to do their own cigar rolling at the event. And I got to say, there's a lot of guys that actually rolled a somewhat serviceable cigar, which was pretty impressive, given that most of them had never even touched a leaf of tobacco.
Wow.
In that format before. So that was fun. This year's amazing. I mean, you got Nick Melillo from Foundation Cigar Company, former Drew Master Blender. I mean, first of all, he's a super good guy. He's got crazy presence in the room. And his cigars are good. I mean, I was talking his ear off about how good that new El Wednesday Maduro is.
Oh.
It's just stupid good.
I mean,
and it was... Go ahead.
For everybody watching, those are hitting the shelves right now. If you can get your hands on them, buy some. Mm-hmm. They are so good. At least try one. They are, I mean, that cigar is just spectacular.
Hey, we have Alan Rubin, the founder of Alec Bradley. I mean, you talk about a guy who grounded out from back in the 90s. This guy decided to get into the cigar industry and really, as a gringo, that was a really tough slog for him, and he just grounded out, and now Alec Bradley is a monstrosity of a cigar company. They're quite large, and he doesn't. I mean, first of all, he's never been to Canada before, and he's just not a guy that really has the time to go out to a lot of cigar events. Usually, it's his kids, Alec and Bradley, that do a lot of cigar events. So to get Alan Rubin at the event was amazing. We have Steve Ricker there, who has Dominion Cigar Company. You got to meet Steve Ricker at the IPCPR. Yep. And so he was a super good guy. He was featuring the Dominion Confederation cigar, which I actually smoked for the first time at the show because I've still got a review sample from the show and I haven't smoked it yet. And it was really, really good. But it's kind of a victim of its own success because it is really good. Most of the stores we've got are actually sold through. So he's got to decide.
They only made a couple hundred boxes of those.
Yeah.
Right.
She's got to decide whether he wants to do a re-up of that or not. I'd imagine based on the response, he's probably going to have to seek out tobacco and make that happen again. And then Joe Bonney and Justin Bonney from Alec Bradley Canada, who are Joe's got more time in the tobacco industry than some people have years on this planet. So he goes back, like he was talking about tobacco industry in the 70s. So, when you get a guy with that kind of tobacco history, that's phenomenal. So it was a huge hit. And, really our focus is going to be try to make it that big of a show next year, because now that we've got 4 big years under our belt, we're going to try and make a 5th year. We're going to have to move the dates, I think, to I think it's the second weekend of October, just to accommodate the Dortmund show, because what we were running into was there's a lot of people that are in Dortmund for the Intertabac. Yeah. And so with Dean Parsons has been out a number of years from Epic Cigar and a huge supporter of the event. And we love Dean and we love his cigars, and everyone, he's a Canadian, everyone loves him. But he just couldn't make it because he couldn't make that connection between Dortmund and Calgary.
Yeah, I know a lot of manufacturers, they head over to Germany early for Dortmund so they can do a couple of events around Europe. And then a lot of them stay a week or two late so that they can do events. So there's kind of like a block between 2 weeks in either side that it's a bad idea to try to schedule anything.
Yeah, so it would be awesome to now that we moved in October, really our goal is to get 4 or 5 big names like we did this year back again for the 5th annual. We were supposed to have Claudio, but Claudio had an amazing number of commitments this year, including the birth of his...
had a baby.
He went and had his first son. Congratulations again to Claudio. That's awesome. I think it'd be great for us to get Claudio out and showcase some of the Mombacho stuff again, because I think that's a phenomenal cigar, especially with the release of the Cosecha. So you planning for the 2018 RMS really starts now. So you've got a year to make it happen, and it's a lot of work.
So what kind of venue do you find that lets 500 people or whatever smoke indoors?
So really, and I guess it's a bit ironic, we actually go to it's on First Nations land. So it's First Nations land, and they've got a hotel and casino. So it really works out well for us because frankly, it's a little bit out of town. It's about 40 minutes out of town, which is not too bad for us because we're used to driving long distances anyways. But really, when you get out there and you're sampling spirits and you're smoking all day and you're drinking all day, really probably not a good scene to have somebody leave the venue after that.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that there's a hotel on the land is really perfect because you can just go back to your hotel room, start up, and it's a 2-day event. So if you want to go for 2 days, and there's a lot of people now that are coming from like 2 or 3 provinces away coming out for the event. So they can come out for 2 days, smoke, hang out, and chill. And they've been very supportive. It's a great partnership for us. We found that it's been really, really tough to get any other venue interested. We've tried to look for more local venues to Calgary because there's a number of casinos in Calgary that also have their own First Nations land and they have hotels. But unfortunately, and I guess this is really, again, just talking about the climate of how tough it is for cigar smokers out there. They don't want cigar smokers. Not only that, you can't actually smoke cigars in their casino. You can smoke a cigarette, but you can't smoke a cigar.
That seems crazy to me. I mean, I don't know. I get that a lot of people are just, for some reason, more offended by cigar smoke than they are cigarette smoke. We have like our laws here are cigar bars are grandfathered. If you had smoking before 2010, I think it is.
Right.
Something weird just happened with your camera. I'm not sure what it is.
Okay.
If you had cigar smoking before the ban started, you can keep it. But recently, we have a chain of bars that had a bunch of different bars that allowed cigar smoking. And recently, they've banned cigar smoking at 3 of those.
Wow,
which is unfortunate.
I mean, I hate to be the voice of doom, but that's kind of what's happening. Is that smoke-free, smoke-friendly venues are disappearing. And, whether you're attending an event in the States or whether you're attending an event in Canada, I think it's really important to support your local B&M for starters, because I can tell you putting on an event is a lot of work. And there's a lot of time, there's a lot of money involved. In a lot of cases, people are thinking, well, yeah, that's fine, but you sell a bunch of boxes. Well, I mean, yeah, you sell some product, but in a lot of cases, some of these events are loss leaders for the store. I mean, they don't necessarily come out ahead because you got to figure in people coming into the event. You got to pay for some of the promotion stuff that happens. So if there's an event going on in your local area, I highly recommend you to support it. Go buy as much as you can, attend those events and support them, because I could see in 5 or 6 years that the cigar events that we've kind of maybe taken for granted might be very tough to come by.
Yeah. I actually there's one place sort of local to me. I won't say the name because I don't want to throw them under the bus, but there's one place that I've been to that smoking is not allowed there, but they have a private room that if you're a member, you can get into that private room and smoke.
Interesting.
Which is a weird loophole in the law because no inspectors are allowed to go onto private areas or anything like that because it's members only.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about, we've gone back and forth over the years trying to figure out a way to make it happen. We're not going to stop trying, but, quite frankly, it's extremely difficult because you really can't make a venue open to the public that is a business that you can smoke in. Because the moment you make it open to the public, it now falls under the business rules that smoking's not allowed. So yeah, it's a sad state of affairs for cigars. It is a sad state of affairs. So really, my overreaching message there is: if there's a cigar event in your area, or even a little bit outside your area, support it as much as possible. Support your local B&Ms. It's a crap ton of work to put on those events. And it's really, for the greater cigar industry to keep those events alive because, if you don't support it this year, in 2 years, maybe it's not going to be around when you finally get around to attending.
Yeah. How's your secret pairing going there?
It's really good. I'm not going to lie. This is like a high 90s pairing, no question in my mind. I think, again, really Japanese whiskey in the Atabey, absolutely a no-brainer. I think we talked about some of the different rums I might want to try and branch out. I've got a pretty full bottle of Maestro here that I might light up another Atabey this weekend and try that out. It is a long weekend for us, so who knows?
Yeah, you might have a little bit of time on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be nice.
That'd be nice. So what do you got going on for tomorrow night for Cigar Chat, Trippy?
We actually don't have a guest for tomorrow night. We're taking a bye week this week. Let me check the schedule. I know we've got somebody scheduled for next week, and then the following week our guest fell through and moved to a different week. So next week we've got Juan Martinez.
I love Juan.
Yes.
Super nice guy.
One of my favorite people in the industry.
With Hoy de Nicaragua, who actually, the Hoy de Nicaragua Black is now launching in Canada, which, I know that seems super long because it's been out in the States for a year, but it's now launching for the first time in Canada. So, some of the stores are asking me, how's that cigar? And I'm like, you gotta bring that cigar in because it's just
it's
so
phenomenal.
Good. Phenomenal cigar.
And then the following week, the following week we actually have to find a guest. But the week after that, I'm really excited about. We have Jeremy Jack cigars coming on.
Nice.
They're a pretty new brand out of Wyoming, I believe. Kind of started by a shop owner. And I've smoked a couple of their cigars so far. We've got some reviews coming up. Man, they're making phenomenal cigars. Aganorsa Tobacco, Casa Fernandez.
That's the cigar that the guys over at Developing Palates couldn't stop talking about for like 4 days straight, right?
Yeah, the entire IPCPR, they were talking about how good those cigars are and how excited they are. So I'm really excited to have Brady on, who owns the company, and just find out what they're all about.
Nice. That'll be good. I'll be tuning into that show as a guest, and I'll be sure to ask some challenging questions and comments to do my part in supporting Cigar Federation and the hard work of the mods at Cigar Federation.
Awesome. I think that about brings us to the end. Any closing comments for you, Surgeon?
I love the Cigar Federation community. I'm still going to be hanging out in the chat room, cracking wise, talking cigars, talking spirits, posting cigar pictures. So, even though I'm not active on the mod crew anymore, I'll still be a part of the community. I'll still be rocking that Cigar Federation ring and, spreading the love. Smoke to live to smoke is the motto at Cigar Federation. So live it.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. We appreciate it. And, I mean, if you have not had an Atabey cigar, please try one. They cost a couple ducats. But I can't say enough about how impressed I am with these cigars. They're so much better than I could have expected them to be.
Yeah, they're absurdly tasty. Absolutely absurdly tasty. I mean, they're maybe not as well known as the name of Padron, but I can tell you after smoking this Misticos, if you like Padron and you want a cigar that's not that level of strength, but it is that level of complexity, you need to get your hands on an Atabey. Absolutely.
All right, and we'll be back next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.